Battle of the Pyramids, 1798, Napoleon's Egyptian nightmare. What happens when the world's most ambitious general sails into the desert chasing glory, science, and a few thousand camels? How does a man who just conquered Italy end up stranded in Egypt, broke, betrayed, and battling bubonic plague? And why did a French flagship explode so violently it lit up the night sky like a revolutionary firework show? This is not just a story of war. It's a tale of obsession, betrayal, and one man's refusal to admit defeat, even when the universe throws sand in his eyes and cannonballs at his fleet. So grab your tricorn hat, tighten your bayonet, and let's dive in. May 1798, France, still basking in the revolutionary afterglow and trying to keep its directory from collapsing like a soufflé in a thunderstorm, decides to take a swing at Britain, not in London, mind you, but in Egypt. Why Egypt? Because it's the Ottoman Empire's crown jewel, a gateway to India, and a place where you can wear a turban and quote the Quran while still feeling très European. So Napoleon boards the 120-gun behemoth L'Orient, the floating fortress of the fleet, and sets sail with over 300 ships. It's not just soldiers he brings, oh no, he's got scientists, scholars, artists, and even a hot air balloonist. Because when Napoleon invades, he doesn't just conquer, he curates. France's plan is deliciously devious. Disrupt British trade in the Eastern Mediterranean, sever their lifeline to India, and maybe, just maybe, spark a revolution in Egypt while they're at it. The Directory, ever the schemers, also sees a bonus. Get Napoleon far away from Paris before he decides to redecorate the government with bayonets. Napoleon, meanwhile, is practically vibrating with excitement. He's quoted saying, "Europe is a molehill, we must set off for the Orient." Translation, I've conquered Italy. Now I want pyramids, pharaohs, and eternal glory. But the Mediterranean isn't a French lake. It's patrolled by Rear Admiral Horatio Nelson, Britain's one-eyed naval hawk with a nose for trouble. He knows the French fleet has left Toulon, but he doesn't know where it's going. So he prowls the sea with 14 ships of the line, hoping to catch Napoleon mid-sail and turn L'Orient into obliterated. And then, plot twist, on the foggy night of June 22nd, Nelson's fleet passes within a few miles of Napoleon's armada. But thanks to Mother Nature's mood lighting, neither side sees the other. It's the maritime equivalent of two blindfolded boxers missing every punch. Before Egypt, Napoleon makes a pit stop at Malta. The island is ruled by the Knights of St. John, a medieval throwback with more ceremony than muscle. In 1565, they held off the Ottomans for 3 months. In 1798, they fold in 2 days. Napoleon overhauls the government, abolishes slavery, sets up schools, and requisitions everything that isn't nailed down. Then he leaves General Vaubois and 5,000 troops to hold the island while he sails off to chase destiny. Napoleon lands in Egypt just hours after Nelson leaves Alexandria in frustration. Talk about dramatic timing. He storms the city with 5,000 troops, overpowers the garrison, and sets up camp. But Alexandria isn't the glittering jewel he expected. It's a dusty, earthquake-ravaged town with 6,000 residents and zero grandeur. The savants are unimpressed. The balloonist probably cries. Still, Napoleon presses on. He's brought 38,000 troops, including the legendary General Dumas, France's first black general, nicknamed the Black Devil by the Austrians. He's got Murat, Berthier, Lens, Marmont, and a whole cast of military rock stars. It's like the Avengers, but with bayonets and powdered wigs. Egypt is technically Ottoman, but in reality, it's ruled by Mamluk warlords Murad Bey and Ibrahim Bey. These guys are ex-slave soldiers turned aristocratic tyrants known for their horsemanship, wealth hoarding, and general disdain for the peasants. Napoleon sees an opportunity. He declares himself a friend of Islam, a liberator of the people, and a punisher of usurpers. He even quotes the Quran. Somewhere, Voltaire is rolling his eyes. Murad and Ibrahim aren't buying it. They rally their fellow Mamluks at the Al-Azhar Mosque and vow to crush the French. Napoleon, never one to wait for trouble, decides to march on Cairo immediately. Less than a day after landing, he's on the move. Now pause for a sec. Step into the extraordinary. Subscribe to Eccentric Digital Pixel. Welcome to the wild frontier of creativity, where pixels pulse with imagination and every frame tells a story you've never seen before. We don't follow trends, we bend reality. Get exclusive access to jaw-dropping digital creations. Be the first to witness new drops by turning on notifications. Don't just scroll. Experience the pixel revolution. Smash that subscribe button and ring the bell to never miss a masterpiece. Because normal is boring, and you were born to see the world differently. Napoleon, ever the overachiever, had just landed in Egypt with dreams of glory and a wardrobe full of revolutionary ideals. But what he hadn't packed? A climate forecast. The Egyptian summer hit the French like a slap from the sun itself. The landscape was a cruel joke, barren, windswept, and so dry it made a biscuit look moist. Still, Napoleon forced the pace. His men, already parched, trudged forward under the blazing sun. Water ran out, thirst clawed at their throats. And then the horror began. Hundreds collapsed, their bodies baking in the sand. Some took their own lives, unable to endure the torment. Bedouin horsemen, swift and silent, circled like vultures. Stragglers were snatched, robbed, tortured, and killed. Grisly punctuation marks on a march gone mad. Even Napoleon's inner circle, battle-hardened comrades like Lannes and Murat, were seen arguing, their voices rising like the desert heat. The general's decisions were being questioned, and not just behind closed tents. After 4 days of hellish marching, the French reached Damanhur. It was like stumbling into an oasis in a nightmare. Water, food, rest, civilization. The men drank, traded, and tried to remember what it felt like to be human. But the reprieve was short-lived. Word arrived. Murad Bey, the Mamluk warlord with a flair for drama and a taste for decapitation, was approaching from the southeast. Napoleon, never one to wait for trouble, advanced to meet him at Shubra-Kit. As the French reached the banks of the Nile, they saw them, 4,000 Mamluk horsemen galloping into view like a cavalry parade designed by Versace. Their outfits shimmered with gold and jewels. Pistols, swords, daggers, and lances gleamed in the sun. It was less a military force and more a fashion statement with hooves. Murad Bey, never shy, declared he would sever Frenchmen's heads like slicing watermelons. Charming. But beneath the glitter and bravado, the Mamluks lacked one thing: modern military discipline. Napoleon formed his troops into massive squares, bayonets bristling, cannon at the corners. The Mamluks charged, circled, and flailed, but they couldn't break through. French musketry tore through their ranks. Scores were shot from the saddle. After 2 hours of futile charges, the Mamluks retreated. They'd lost around 1,000 men. The French, barely a scratch. Morale soared. The desert hadn't broken them, and now they were ready to break Egypt. Murad fell back to Mbaba, a town on the Nile's west bank, just 9 miles from the pyramids. It was here, on July 21st, that the showdown would unfold. Napoleon had 25,000 men, arranged in 5 massive squares. Inside, cavalry, baggage, and cannon. Outside, bayonets and resolve. Murad, bold as ever, crossed the Nile to face them, leaving Ibrahim Bey behind. His elite cavalry, 6,000 strong, lined up between Biktil and Mbaba, backed by Ottoman infantry and peasant militia. Napoleon's plan? Simple. Smash through the center, crush the right flank against the river, and let the pyramids witness history. At 3:30 p.m., Desaix and Regnier's divisions advanced, but the terrain was treacherous and their formation wobbled. Murad saw his chance and unleashed his cavalry. The Mamluks thundered forward, hooves pounding like war drums, but the French held their fire. Until the last moment. Then, thum! A volley of musket fire erupted. Horses and riders tumbled. The survivors tried to regroup, but more charges met the same fate. Napoleon ordered Bonne and Vial forward. Again, the Mamluks charged. Again, they shattered against French firepower. It was a massacre. French troops stormed Mbaba. Those not killed fled into the Nile. Hundreds drowned. Murad escaped to Giza with the remnants of his cavalry. Ibrahim Bey, watching the carnage from across the river, turned and fled to Cairo. In just 2 hours, the Mamluks had lost over 5,000 men. The French? Fewer than 300, mostly wounded. Napoleon, ever the showman, named it the Battle of the Pyramids. Because if you're going to win big, you might as well brand it. 3 days later, on July 24th, Napoleon entered Cairo. The city was scorched and half abandoned, torched by the retreating Mamluks. Napoleon, never one to mince words, declared it would be difficult to find a richer land and a more wretched, ignorant, and brutish people. Charming again. But Cairo was his. A city of 600,000 souls. The heart of Egypt. With the Mamluks scattered and the Nile flowing red, Napoleon's dream of eastern conquest seemed within reach. Just 8 days after Napoleon's triumphant entry into Cairo, the Mediterranean delivers a plot twist worthy of Shakespeare and Michael Bay combined. On the afternoon of August 1st, 1798, Rear Admiral Horatio Nelson, Britain's one-eyed naval hawk with a sixth sense for French mischief, finally finds the French fleet anchored in Abu Qir Bay. The French, thinking they were safe, had parked their ships like it was a Sunday picnic. Nelson, never one for subtlety, decides, why wait for morning when you can ruin someone's evening? With 14 British ships of the line against 13 French, he launches a twilight assault. What follows is not a battle, it's a demolition derby with cannonballs. The French flagship L'Orient, a floating palace with 120 guns and most of Napoleon's cash, explodes in a fireball so massive it lights up the sky like a revolutionary fireworks show. By dawn, 11 French ships are destroyed or captured. Over 3,000 French sailors are taken prisoner. Napoleon is stranded in Egypt, broke, and now the proud owner of a landlocked army. Does Napoleon despair? Of course not. He's Napoleon. He probably saw the explosion and thought, well, that's dramatic, let's build a hospital. With no fleet and no way home, he pivots like a man who's read too much Machiavelli. He abolishes Egypt's feudal system, sets up a postal service, because even revolutionaries need mail, builds hospitals, and introduces a new tax system, less popular. Founds the Institute of Egypt, a think tank of scientists, scholars, and balloonists who study everything from mummies to mosquitoes. He even funds mosque construction and encourages Islamic festivals. Rumors swirl that he's converted to Islam. He hasn't. He's just playing chess, while everyone else is playing backgammon. Napoleon receives word that his beloved Josephine has rekindled her affair with her ex. Paris society is gossiping like it's a Regency drama. Napoleon, wounded but pragmatic, consoles himself with affairs of his own, including one with an officer's wife. Because when in Cairo, despite his reforms and religious flattery, the Egyptians aren't buying it. They see foreign occupiers, not liberators. Minor revolts erupt across the Nile Delta. The French respond with brutal efficiency. Then, in September, Sultan Selim III of the Ottoman Empire declares a holy war against the French. The situation is about to combust. October 21st, 1798, Cairo erupts. General Dupuy, the city's military governor, is called to break up a disturbance. He finds barricades. He's attacked and killed. The city is in full rebellion. The French respond with ruthless discipline. Streets run red. Around 300 French soldiers die. Thousands of Egyptians are killed. Napoleon pardons the ringleaders publicly, but privately orders Berthier, anyone caught with a weapon, off with their heads, into the Nile. It's a bloody reassertion of control. But the message is clear. Napoleon may hold Cairo, but he'll never hold Egypt's heart. The months that follow are grim. Communication with France is sporadic. Supplies dwindle. Ammunition, wine, and morale run low. Bubonic plague breaks out, thinning the ranks like a grim reaper with a French accent. While Cairo languishes, General Desai leads 20,800 men in pursuit of Murad Bey deep into Upper Egypt. It's a chase worthy of an epic poem. One officer shines. Louis-Nicolas Davout, a 28-year-old cavalry brigadier with the tactical mind of a chess master and the patience of a saint. On January 22, 1799, Desai and Davout deliver a crushing blow to Murad Bey's forces. Murad escapes, but his army is shattered. Napoleon, ever the schemer, pins his hopes on diplomacy. Enter Charles Maurice de Talleyrand, France's foreign minister, a man so slippery he could moonlight as a bar of soap. Talleyrand promises to go to Constantinople and smooth things over with the Sultan. Spoiler, he never leaves Paris. The Sultan remains furious. Orders go out across the Ottoman Empire. Raise troops, drive out the French. Napoleon's expedition is now 1,600 miles from home, surrounded by enemies, ravaged by disease, cut off from reinforcements. So what does he do? He channels his inner Alexander the Great and decides, if you can't retreat, attack. Next up, Indian Rebellion. But before we march into the next chapter of this epic saga, don't forget to follow us, subscribe. Click the notification bell so you never miss another thrilling twist in history's most dramatic tales. Because with Napoleon, the story is never over. It just gets more outrageous.